Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another talk here at Power to Fly. My name is Rob Rebar, and I am the Director of Events and Marketing here at Power to Fly. Very excited for this next conversation, which is on closing the AI divide, making artificial intelligence work for everyone. Super excited to be joined here on the Power to Fly stage by Susan Gonzales, the founder and CEO of AIandYou, which was launched in 2019. They are non-for-profit to educate ordinary people about artificial intelligence and prepare them for the opportunities and challenges of AI. Susan brought many years of experience in technology and policy and community outreach to AIandYou. Previously, Susan was a policy executive with Facebook and other tech and telecom companies. Susan's career in policy has been centered on technology policy and community engagement. So, Susan, we are so lucky to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
So my first question for you is AI literacy. This means different things to different people. So how do you personally define it, and why do you believe it's become one of the most urgent priorities of our time?
hmm Well, I define AI literacy. My sweet spot with AI and you really are young adults and adults. So we don't address K through 12, or trying to get people to become PhDs in computer science type of thing. So our sweet spot are workers, small business owners, women, seniors, people that are typically left out of conversations. And so when I talk about AI literacy, I'm talking about AI basics, understanding the basics. How I describe it really is, if you think of a pyramid, the base of the pyramid is where research shows that roughly 70% of Americans are, and the number is similar globally. So really only, if you think about that, out of a group of 10 people, maybe three actually understand AI. Most have heard about it, but understanding AI basics right now is so low in this country. So that's what I'm talking about is, again, on the pyramid, the bottom is like math 101.
Mhm.
Like that's where the big we are. We're at math 101, experiencing this unprecedented global technology. But what's happening is a lot of people are talking about trigonometry halfway up the pyramid. And a lot of people just nod in situations, and especially people in leadership, because people aren't really comfortable in like raising their hand and saying, I don't really understand. But the reality is we're all learning together.
Mhm.
But there's sort of this undertone of like, well, everyone should understand it. But anyway, so that's why I focus on AI basics, because people cannot build upon those skills if they don't understand what's predictive AI, what's generative AI, what's an AI agent. I mean, let's start there.
I love this because so often everything's moving at such a quick pace. I think so much, especially in the corporate business world, we all at least have this perception that we should be in the deep end of the pool already. And there's some people who haven't even jumped in the water. So I love that you're really starting with the basics because in our many events, I've spoken with some very senior people in business and they themselves are still unfamiliar with AI. So if we're thinking of those people are still getting used to it, what is like the common person who's just maybe starting their own business or something like that? What is their experience with AI?
Well, and even along those lines, it's interesting you mentioned CEOs, because what's happening real time, like now, is companies are pressured to integrate AI tools, meaning
Hmm.
download the software, pay a price for it, and it's just on the in the backbone of your IT, which we're familiar with. That's how everything works, right? Um, but what's happening is that one, CEOs don't really understand AI integration and AI governance, because even once you purchase, if you will, an AI tool for your company, let's say the HR department, well, someone needs to monitor that, needs to watch
Yes.
how it's governed. That's what it's called. But what's happening is that the AI integration failure rate in companies is trending upwards. And that's because one is not even the leadership doesn't really understand it, but two, employees definitely don't understand it. And there was a story I read recently that there was a research that shows up to 80% of employees today are just refusing to use AI.
Hmm.
And that's all
Yes.
fear-based. It's understandable, but it's all fear-based. So that's some of the work that we've been doing also is helping companies with their own internal AI literacy. Because what's happening is in meanwhile, companies are now placing AI usage monitoring as part of your employee experience, and then your performance review is going to be based on that.
Hmm.
So it's a double-edged sword. So how can I, as an employee, be expected to embrace this tool if I don't even understand the basics to begin? So yeah, there's such a trickle-down effect that people don't understand it's happening real time.
Yeah, and we just hosted a recent chat and learn, uh, uh, and the speaker said actually the company they were working with invested $900,000 into AI adoption. I believe the AI adoption rate that company got was around 20%, which to me is not $900,000 worth. So there's a lot of work there, and you kind of saw that in founding AI and you left a senior policy role at Facebook in 2019 to launch AI and You, which was really long before AI was a cultural phenomenon that it is today. So, what drove that decision way back when in the dark ages of 2019? And
No
what was it like
kidding,
trying to
right?
build that movement of something that people really hadn't fully heard of? Obviously, technologists knew
Mm.
of it, but the common person, yeah, we hadn't heard of AI then.
Yeah, so I was at Facebook in the early days, and um, about 12 years ago, this new technology called AI showed up. And so because I was a policy person, I had to work with the engineers to understand it, to be able to go up to Capitol Hill and communicate what it is.
Hmm.
So that's where I learned how to translate tech talk into simple language, if you will. But I could see that this technology was either going to be really good or not good for communities. And particularly at the time, it was allowing the blind community to access the Facebook.com platform.
Mm.
And so I was in the middle of all of that. And that's what sparked my interest. And so I decided to leave the company and launch into this space. And yeah, you're right. I mean, for the first 3 years, nobody really, I had great corporate supporters, few who believed in this work, but it was no one's ever had heard of AI literacy, and I would tell even my family, I was saying, this AI thing, I'm telling you, it's going to be a thing, and they would just like nod their heads. So now, once ChatGPT was launched, people thought that was the birth of AI. And then now,
Hmm.
t to this day, anyone I run into who's known me a long time, everyone says the same thing, like, wow, this is what you were talking about.
Yeah. I've known some technologists who said, I knew it back when it was called machine learning. So,
Right,
yeah.
right, right. But now it's mainstream. But to your point, why people are talking about AI literacy now, because even a year ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation because you probably wouldn't
Hmm.
have heard of AI literacy. But what's happening is
Hmm.
that because it's gone so mainstream so quickly, people, ordinary people, your family, friends, my family and friends, are now realizing, oh my goodness, I need to understand this. It's everywhere. Self-checkout at the grocery store, go to the airport,
Hmm.
everything is AI from the moment you drive in. So people are realizing now that it's time to understand it.
That. And you've written really that AI literacy, this is a global call to action. And in practical terms, what does the AI knowledge gap look like today? And which communities are most at risk of being left behind?
hmm Well, it's interesting. Women are slightly behind, but behind men for sure, as far as adoption, particularly because women, we tend to be more cautious in this type of thing. But we are gaining track. So that's one area I'm really focused on is
Mm.
women in AI. But when it comes to people of color, but particularly women of color, the rates are just terrible. So, for example, in California alone, The average understanding for women of AI, this understanding of having a foundational knowledge for women of color, it's around 12 to 17%. So that means, again, like in a group of 10 people, they're if half of them are women of color or all of them, only one or maybe two people understand some basics of AI. That's frightening.
Hmm.
Because what's happening is we are already creating an AI divide. So the only way that we can address that is like having conversations like this, right? So it becomes it's a viral conversation because what all we need to do is spark curiosity. The bar is low. We're not asking people to go pay and take a course to learn this or anything like that. No, it's, either go to AIandYou.org or there's other free nonprofit sites where you can learn the basics and then maybe go learn some more. But if not, at least you understand what we're doing every day. People
Hmm.
don't typically don't understand that the minute we touch our device, we're interacting with AI. People aren't making
Yeah.
that connection.
Yeah. I've heard from several people that they're actually kind of afraid of breaking AI. And that's one of the reasons why they don't want to start just playing around with it. And that's what we tell people all the time. You're not going to break it. Just start somewhere. And even the people who you think are so advanced, it's changing all the time for them as
Mhm.
well. We're all in this learning curve right now. So it's actually very interesting. And I think in some ways exciting because, yes, there are some people that are very far advanced, but so many of us are actually in the same boat, really for maybe the first time in like my lifetime with this kind of advanced technology.
Anybody's lifetime.
Hmm.
This is
Yes.
unprecedented. This is not like back in the day when it was called digital literacy and the focus was training people on PowerPoint.
Hmm.
That's not what this is. This is everything we do all day today, everything. The backbone is AI. Now, of course, not things with our hands. That's a difference. So gardening or plumbing, that type of thing. But and there's huge implications for jobs and workers and
Oh,
white
yeah.
collar jobs and new college students and it's real. So it's happening now. And I even have a 16-year-old niece and I don't even know what to tell her. It's
Hmm.
like, other than, yeah, sorry, this is
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
But at the
Well,
same time, AI also is doing some incredible things in medicine,
hmm.
really a lot of great advancements and in education. But then again, the education community often are overloaded and they're just like, we can't even take that on. So there's no blanket policy, there's no, anything because everybody's at different levels of understanding or heads in their sand. I mean, really.
Hmm.
And I mean that
Yeah.
respectfully because it's like there's too many things that are going on. People aren't realizing, and this is what I communicate to policymakers and staff, especially in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C., is that every issue that is covered in policy and in the world, climate, any transportation, education, healthcare, everything, the backbone is AI.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that ties in great to the next thing I wanted to ask you because I know your specialty is really making these complex technical topics accessible for everyday people. You're having these conversations in Sacramento, in Washington, as you said. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've encountered or that the general public holds about AI? And what are you doing to kind of break down those misconceptions?
I would say the number one misconception today, still, believe it or not, is it's coming
Mm.
when it is
Yeah,
completely
yes.
here. And and I think a lot of people, especially when you think about the senior community, who they have devices, like, I mean, senior is like 50 and over, so of course
Yes.
seniors have devices, right? But even that, it's getting people to understand here are the good things and here are the not great things. Here's what can happen with scams because of AI for targeting the senior community, for example. So there's that. So it's just a balance of all this information. But I think the biggest misconception is somebody else, I should be knowing so much more because everybody else does in
Hmm.
the room. And that's just not the case. And so what's happening is a lot of people, it's the blind leading the blind. Someone asked me one time, well, how come these policymakers aren't doing more about it? And my response was, well, first of all, it's not something they can learn walking down the hall, which is what happens,
Hmm.
on Capitol Hill or in like Sacramento type of thing. So it's also educating policymakers along the way. Because typically it would be an issue from hundreds of years, education, health, the same old thing, but this everything's changed.
Hmm. Yeah, the analogy I had heard recently was some of the restrictions, some of the education around cigarettes, which took
Mm.
this very, very long time to, it was done incrementally. But now with AI, the speed in which AI is running at, we don't have that time to do that kind of education and the guardrails that are going to potentially need to be put around it in many ways.
Right. Well, and then even just talking about guardrails, that's an entirely different topic, right?
Hmm.
Because there are none. I mean, it's a wild, wild west right now. It's almost the way I describe it is imagine before the FDA. That's what we're in with this technology. I mean,
Hmm.
it is a free for all. And it probably will be for some time because if you think about it, to create guardrails, meaning pass laws, which require legislation, that's a couple year process typically
Yeah.
if it's successful, at least a year until it actually happens. Well, the technology, but from when it was written and from when it actually is implemented is going to be very different.
Hmm.
So that's one of the biggest challenges of like creating guardrails because how do you keep up with it? Because the guardrail that was created 9 months ago isn't applicable anymore.
Hmm. And one thing that we talk a lot about here at Power to Fly is the sense of equity and inclusion. And there's definitely
Mm.
been lots of conversations with that in terms of its relationship to AI. And your work spans everything from bilingual learning platforms to working with the World Economic Forum. What does truly equitable AI literacy look like in practice? And where are we falling short as a society today?
I can't even imagine what equitable looks like because we're so
Mm,
far from it. I mean, even like with access to technology, right? The digital divide. We learned during the pandemic that that was alive and well 25
mhm.
years later. And so the AI divide is just beginning. Um, Wait, what was the second part of your question?
And then, where are there places that we're really falling short today? Sounds like just a lot of places,
Oh, well,
basically.
what's happening is that, and probably the number one lesson I've learned in almost 7 years of being squarely in AI literacy is that this is not a build it and they shall come initiative or
Mm,
topic because people are so freaked out and afraid of AI often that there's no curiosity to
mhm,
want to build it, come, so to speak. So what I learned in my work in Washington, D.C. on the AI committee there, and also just in my personal work, is that this type of education needs to be pushed out. So to put up a website saying, here we go to our website and you can learn about, the tech companies do this. Um, so we're asking people to go to the people that they don't trust to try to learn about AI. So that's a problem. So I think there needs to be more push out to the communities because what we did with the work in DC was we met a bunch of stakeholders and every single one of them said, here's the issue. Our community does not understand this, and they need to learn it from trusted sources in the community.
mhm,
So that would be the one thing I would, and that I tell policymakers too, that this needs to be pushed out into the communities. So that requires training the trainers because it's not like giving some local community center a bunch of money because they probably can't train anybody. So the missing piece
mm,
is that is next. This is the next iteration I see coming is scaling training the trainers so it gets down to the community,
mm.
not
I
just
love that.
checking a
And
box by throwing up like a technology website.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing I've heard from some folks is like they don't want to take a course right now because their concern is by the time they take the course, everything covered is going to be obsolete because it's moving so fast. Are you hearing anything along those lines of like people are like, well, it's just changing all the time. I'm going to wait till it slows down or something along those lines?
No, I haven't heard that. It sounds like a convenient reason to not do it.
Sure.
Just
Yeah.
saying.
Yes. No, no,
Because
completely agree.
there's no slowing down. It's not like, okay, we're done. Now you can catch up. That's
Yeah,
never going
yeah.
to happen.
And having trained thousands of people across the country, anything that has surprised you most about people engaging with AI now as a part of your training?
The thing that surprises me the most, but the research speaks to it, is how few people understand AI basics. It's almost shocking. But to me, because I live and breathe it every day, but that
Hmm.
is just a reflection of where we actually are. And often, especially people in leadership aren't comfortable raising their hands and asking questions. So what I do is I have these private conversations or private dinners with policymakers so we can just put it out on the table. That's also required. So yeah, that's what I see looking ahead.
I love that. And for a call to action, I think you kind of just touched on this as well, but for business leaders, for educators, for community activists, in this, everyone who's like listening here today, because we've got a little bit of everyone here. What's the single most important thing that they can do to advance AI literacy in their own organizations, their own business, their own community, what have you?
Number one is to admit your own level of understanding as a leader, as a CEO, as a nonprofit leader, because this is hugely a trickle down. If the
Hmm.
top leadership in an organization is not vocal about embracing AI literacy, it's not going to happen. And so as a result, any AI tools that, whether you're a business organization, a large organization, or a nonprofit, AI adoption rates are not going to be successful in your organization because you're not stopping to take the time to educate all employees. So
Hmm.
it's not just the HR team about the HR tool. It's about AI basics for your entire enterprise. And then that will feed into more successful AI adoption. And most importantly, safely,
Hmm.
because we need to ensure that people understand the benefits and the risks, hallucination,
Yes.
where it can go wrong.
Yeah, I love that. We've spoken with a lot of leaders who, again, kind of jumped into the deep end of the pool. And one thing that we've said to them is, but do you have those guardrails set? Do you have basically like your Bill of Rights for AI set up for your organization? And you don't have to share that publicly necessarily, but if you have that at least internally, so your teams know, okay, this system is off limits. Let's focus on this one. This is, don't put people sensitive information into AI. A lot of folks kind of just said to their teams, okay, start using this thing without ever saying, oh, yeah, maybe don't put your clients' email into the AI right now.
Exactly. That's
Mhm.
exactly what is happening. And at the same time, as far as being an employee, so there's a thing called vibe coding, just meaning you can code, just vibe with whatever comes to you, and you
Mhm.
code using an AI tool. But what's happening now is that employees are vibe coding at work, not realizing that whatever they're creating isn't going to belong to them.
Mhm.
It belongs to now it's in the developer system, but it also belongs to the employer. So that's an interesting new twist as well.
Very interesting. And Susan, before we let you go, where else can folks learn more about AI and you? Where can they connect with you? Where should they
Mhm.
go?
Yeah, it would be great to connect on LinkedIn at Susan Gonzales, Gonzales, with AI and you. And then also, certainly, we create content to give it away. And so at our nonprofit platform, AIandYou.org, There's simple explainer videos and content and Q's and A's and glossaries and updated news for AI in small business, AI in women, AI in seniors. Just visit. I promise you, and your family. So that's what we need to do.
Yes,
This needs to be a viral conversation. So my call to action is please tell three people about this conversation. And
I
then they'll
love
tell
that.
three. I mean, that's again, this is unprecedented. So this is what we need to do. It's kind of like a divide and conquer right now. So we're not left behind, whoever we are.
I think that's great. And if you're watching this live, we will have some of these links in our post event blog post, which will be out soon. If you're watching the recording, well, the good news is that post is already live. So just go to powertofly.com and you can find all the links to and AI and you. Susan, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing all these amazing insights with the Power to Fly community.
Thank you. Take care.